Hi.
What's going on, everybody? We got live tonight, joined by Chris Rosvoglou, Sports Illustrated writer, the Spun writer, hosting the Straight Up Saints podcast on YouTube. So make sure you go check him out. Chris, how we doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, guys. Excited to talk sports with you guys once again.
All right. JP's, what's up? And Flash, my co-host out there, he can do his introduction.
That's all I need. Thank you very much.
Man, wow. A few words tonight, I guess.
What's going on, folks? You know me, I'm Jay Peeps from the Run and Gun podcast. I'm glad to be here tonight. I'm excited to finally meet Chris. That's what's up. Another NFC South fan, actually, he does a lot more stuff than we do. But another NFC South mind in with penalty talk tonight. I'm excited. I had to get away from all the nonsense that people have been putting out because, like I said, Grambling apparently invented tailgates and junior days and stuff.
and you got roasted for the meat all those things.
Oh, what? Did Grambling actually claim they started the tailgate?
Yeah. Oh, you'd be surprised. And then apparently Jackson State thinks they can play in the SEC, so I had to get away from that for a little while.
Hey, Chris interviewed Dion, so he's been interviewing some HBCU things too. So I mean, if JP's, you got anything for him too? I'm sure you got it.
Oh yeah, I definitely got questions for this now.
All right, but anyway,
I just want to say one thing short. We got Jay Peeps on the show. It's been a while since we had him on the show. I think this is his first time being on the show since this season started. So I'm glad we finally got him on. And Chris, welcome to the show. That's all I gotta say.
All right, be a friend, tell a friend, like, share, subscribe. Running Guns tomorrow 8. Let's hit this intro and get going. We have a short time with Chris. All right, let's get into this kickoff. All right, so as we know, the NFL draft's Thursday night, next week, Thursday night, April 28th. So, Chris, I know I've been following with this, and you made it clear that you have Kenny Pickett as your top quarterback in this class. So I was just trying to figure out what makes him be that top guy for you.
Well, I think in terms of readiness, he's that top guy. In terms of overall talent and kind of projecting towards the future, I think Malik Willis has to be that guy because I think he has all the special skill sets and like wow features that I think we're looking for in terms of quarterbacks nowadays. But I think for Kenny Pickett, if we're talking about can he step in and play this fall, I think he checks off all the boxes in terms of experience, in terms of wins, in terms of being in a system for multiple years and getting the terminology down. And I think for a lot of these teams that have been able to speak with him, that's something that they're impressed at, just being able to pick up the playbook quickly. I still give the edge, though, to Malik Willis in the sense that who seems more of a franchise quarterback. I think Malik's he has that feel to me that if I draft him and I put the right supporting cast around him, there's a chance that he could pop, and that's what you want from your quarterback. But I still think Kenny Pickett's an interesting player, and I think he's a guy that has Derek Carr tendencies to me. I don't know if we'll ever reach that, though. I think Derek Carr is actually an underrated quarterback, although he's getting paid like an overrated one at this point. But I do think that there is a lot to like with Pickett. I know there's some concerns about the arm strength, but he's accurate, which I like. I think he's more mobile than people expect. And I think he's a quarterback who's going to come in right away. And I think he can do, if he's in the right system, things that we saw Mac Jones do this past year in terms of valuing the ball and taking what the defense is giving you.
All right, because you mentioned like being in the right system. So what would be the ideal situation, all draft class, picks order aside? What do you think would be the ideal fit for Kenny Pickett then?
I think teams like New Orleans make a lot of sense in terms of they have that West Coast structure that fit him. I think that makes a lot of sense there. I would have liked Carolina a little bit more had they actually shown me some, stability in the terms of the coaching staff, because I think they have a lot of weapons there that I do like DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey, obviously, and guys like Terrace Marshall and Robbie Anderson. but I would probably go New Orleans as one. I would say Pittsburgh is another one in terms of he knows how to play in that environment. They have really good outside receivers in Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool. And that's a team that realistically, I don't know if you're really going to sell me that much on Mitch Trubisky taking that next step. So I think that's a team at 20. If Kenny Pickett's there, maybe that would entice me in terms of taking a shot on him. And then, I think people have linked him to teams like Atlanta, teams like maybe Seattle. I don't really like that fit for him. I think you'd put so much on his plate, and I think that's where his greatest flaws would get shown. So right now, I'd say New Orleans and Pittsburgh are probably the ideal spots for a guy like Kenny Pickett.
All right,
I just want to interject real quickly. I actually do like the sound of Pittsburgh.
Wait, so and to mention the Carolina Panthers, were you saying Kenny Pickett with Carolina, or were you saying Malik Willis with Carolina?
Well, frankly, I think either one would be interesting with the weapons that they have. But my concern more so is, is this Matt Rule's last season? I think he's kind of on the hot seat and they have to produce. And my concern is if it's either quarterback there, and let's say the Panthers don't play that well this year, then we worry about the trap of a rookie quarterback all of a sudden having 2 head coaches in 2 years. That scares me a lot, especially for a guy like Malik Willis, because I think Malik Willis is a player, if you get to sit him a year and he's around a stable coaching staff, if they can fix certain things and get him to be a little bit more efficient, that's a guy who will really excite a lot of fans for years to come. So that's why I don't really like Carolina in that spot, because they really seem to be in a desperation mode. Whereas, let's say a team like Pittsburgh, Mike Tomlin's not going anywhere. I feel really good about them going in that type of environment.
All right, Flash.
How about a team like Seattle? I'm curious.
I mean, it's interesting. I'll put it this way for Seattle. I get worried about the fact that Pete Carroll's not really up to date in terms of today's NFL, and I think that's a big complaint that Seahawks fans would have. But,
I agree with that.
I would like them a little bit more than Carolina, because I don't necessarily know if Pete Carroll's going anywhere. But even then, they would concern me. What's the offensive system there? They would run through coordinators. And, I mean, Russell Wilson was ready to get out there. So I don't really know if I'd like Seattle. I think it's kind of a let Drew Lock kind of take the hits, and maybe they'll assess the quarterback position next year.
Okay. I have some things I'll say about Seattle later on. So
I have a question. So as far as your analysis of the HBCU products coming out that are the higher tier HBCU products coming out this year, where would you put guys like Marquise Bell and I believe Justin Durant from South Carolina State, Savion Williams, and also James Houston, the Florida transfer who ended up at Jackson State?
Yeah, I think you mentioned Bell before. He's a guy that I kind of sometimes mock to the Saints, and although it's a little selfish of me, they need safety help. I think he's an intriguing fit. I don't know if he's going to be a day one immediate impact player, but I think if you can get him around the 4th to 5th round, that's kind of the 5th round's kind of the sweet spot that I like for him. He should definitely be drafted on day 3. I think that he's a guy in terms of the athleticism, the relative athletic score that a lot of scouts like to use. He's top of the charts there. Like, he is above 90% of this draft class at the safety spot, and that's something that intrigues me. Another guy I'll mention, I forgot his first name. I think it was Jatiri Carter, offensive lineman. He is a really interesting prospect. He's a guy who not only shined at the Senior Bowl in terms of meetings. Apparently, they love what he's about. He's all football, all business. That's a guy who maybe sneaks into day 2, if not day 3. Really, really like him as a developmental guy. Keith Corbin from Jackson State. That's a receiver who I don't know necessarily if he's going to get drafted, but I look at the production he had last season with Jackson State. Could you find a package for him on 3rd down, maybe the red zone, that he could be effective? That's someone I like there as well. I would not be surprised if there's about at least, I'm going to go around at least 5 to 6 HBCU prospects that I think should get drafted. And I think that number is actually going to keep going up as the years go on, which is just awesome to see.
Definitely.
But there are definitely at least a couple that I see on day 3 making impact. Bell's probably my favorite of the group. I think that guy with the right coaching, you might have a really talented playmaker there in the secondary.
I've been one of the biggest preachers of Marquise Bell to the Saints, and mostly after you saw Malcolm Jenkins retired, they need that thumper down low who can make that 4th and 1 stop for you. And I think after seeing how Bell played in FAMU, he can play much better in the box and safety, but he can also play that coverage that you would need that like Malcolm used to play. That's why I kind of liked him there in that fit. But I mean, going on now to I
want to say something.
Yeah, go.
If I may. Number one, I actually think the Saints should probably just go after defensive players or wide receivers in this draft. Give Jameis his fair chance. and then if it doesn't work out, you can only back another year. I mean, honestly, I just wanted us to throw that out. Number two,
I think that leads right into the next question of what would be your ideal situation for the draft for the Saints coming up next week?
I think ideally the first thing is get a wide receiver. Like I don't care if it's Jameson Williams, who happens to be my favorite from the bunch. It could be Chris Olave, it could be Garrett Wilson. I get one of them. It could be even a player like Treylon Burks, who some people have higher than I would, but I do see the talent there with a player like him. They need to get a wide receiver. That has to be priority number one in this first round. It doesn't matter if it happens at 16, doesn't matter if it happens at 19. They need playmakers. And then I think, the second part ideally is that there is either A, run on offensive tackles, or B, a run on quarterbacks early that pushes premier talent to the Saints. Because I think when you have pick 16 and pick 19 and you make the move that they did with the Eagles, you're looking to really bolster the roster more so, I would say, today than for the future. So if they can get two impact players on day one that are going to start for this season and make plays, kind of like Ramczyk and Lattimore did back in 2017, that would be the ideal formula for them. I will say, though, there is an opportunity there if Carolina doesn't go quarterback and Atlanta doesn't go quarterback. If the Saints end up in a situation where they can get a wide receiver at 16 and then maybe, like I mentioned, Kenny Pickett before at 19, I don't know how much you can pass that opportunity up for two reasons. A, they've done a lot of homework on Kenny Pickett. So if they like what they found from him, I find it hard for them to pass him up at 19. And then B, I like the idea of Jameis Winston maybe becoming a franchise quarterback, but unfortunately, A, we haven't seen it in New Orleans yet, and B, they don't have a quarterback signed through the 2024 season. Jameis Winston signed for 2 years. Andy Dalton signed for 1 year. I think you can ask any Saints fan. They're not going to tell you something great about Ian Book. It's not there right now. He would need to make a huge leap this year, I would think, to stay on the roster, let alone maybe one day become a starter for the Saints. So there isn't enough long-term investments there that I wouldn't be surprised if they take a quarterback. But I think first and foremost, got to get a wide receiver, and then hopefully a prospect that they really like, whether it's a Trevor Penning or a Kyle Hamilton, one of those guys slides. That'd be pretty good for them because they could get a guy right there that they value maybe in the top 10 on their board at a later price, I would say, in the first round.
All right, let me propose like a situation here. Before Flash start, I don't want to interrupt. I was like, so if Trevor Penning went to like the Chargers, right, and you already took your wide receiver at 16, and Kenny Pickett's not there, whatever. I've heard rumors of Kansas City trying to jump the Packers for that, like around the 19-21 area, to jump them so they can get the receiver that they really like a Chris Olave or something, right? Would you see the Saints, albeit they never did with Deshaun Payton era, but now they're doing stuff he never used to do anyway? Do you see them probably packaging like 30 and 31 and trying to jump Green Bay at 19?
Look, I mean, if that's the offer you hypothetically get, I would take that in a heartbeat. I'd rather have, more premier picks in terms of they got a lot more holes. I think the Saints have a lot more holes than people think. And I would take that in a heartbeat. I don't know, though, if the Saints are necessarily going to be looking to move back unless they get blown away with an offer. Like hypothetically, what you just said, if the Chiefs want to move up from, let's say, pick 30, they're going to have to pay a steep price. So they probably would even have to consider getting rid of those two first. And if they did that, then I would do that in a heartbeat if I were New Orleans. I kind of think, though, the way, and at least from what a lot of people are hearing, it seems like there's going to be a run on offensive tackles. And I think there will be a good amount of players that maybe the Saints didn't think they could get that might slide there to 19. And it might be someone that Saints fans aren't necessarily fond of because they don't want to go all defense. But Flash mentioned it before. Maybe a Jordan Davis at 19, maybe a Devontae Wyatt. I don't know if the Saints would consider it, but those are two guys that would be intriguing for Dennis Allen. He is a defensive coach. But to go back to your point, look, if a team wants to leapfrog the Packers, you're going to have to make them pay for it to move out of that 19 spot because they did invest a lot in that Eagles trade to have those 2 first-round picks.
All right, Flash. Sorry.
So actually 2 things. I just want actually one thing is a question. Another thing is what a statement. Yeah, I mean, I personally think Saints should bolster a roster. If Jameis Winston doesn't work out, I mean, look, Bryce Young and there's going to be a whole bunch of quarterbacks coming.
They don't have a first-round pick next year.
It don't have to be next year. It could.
Oh, okay.
I mean, look, there's going to be young quarterbacks going to be coming up all the time. I mean, that's just what my gut is feeling. If I was a Saints, if I was a Saints GM or something, that's just me. Second of all, now I want to ask future Seattle Seahawks. What do you think about what they should do with Tyler Lockett, Jermaine Kearse, and
Jermaine Kearse?
DK. I really said Jermaine Kearse. Wow. He's retired.
You mean DK Metcalf?
Yeah.
DK, DK and Lockett. What do you think they should do with those guys?
Well,
And the Seattle situation as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lockett for starters, I wouldn't move him. I think he has one of the best contracts I've seen in the NFL. Like, if you look at the average salary he gets relative to the production that he has, I don't think there's a better value play at wide receiver than him. As for DK Metcalf, I think it comes, Seattle's got to be honest with themselves. Do they see themselves competing in 2 to 3 years from now? If they see themselves in 3 years from now competing, I'm not getting rid of DK Metcalf. I'm going to pay DK Metcalf, and I'm going to figure out who's throwing DK Metcalf the ball. Now, if they don't think they're going to compete in 3 years from now, I would get rid of DK because I think you can get minimum a first-round pick for him, and that first-round pick can be used for maybe a position that Seattle would value more. But I think today, more than ever, wide receivers are way more important than they've ever been before, and DK Metcalf is a special talent. There is something there, and with him and Lockett, if you bring in a new quarterback, maybe it's Malik Willis, or maybe it's not Malik Willis. Maybe it's next year. You mentioned Bryce Young. Maybe it's CJ Stroud from Ohio State next year. Mm-hmm. What better luxury than having Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf to throw the ball to? That would just only expedite the process of you developing as a quarterback. So I think for them, I would not go full rebuild if I think I can compete in 2-3 years from now. If I don't, then I'm going to make a move. As for, let's say, what they should do in the draft, I think for me, there's 2 positions. I'm looking at corner, and I'm maybe looking at offensive line. And if it's Ahmad Sauce Gardner or it's Derek Stingley at 9, I think that would be a really good pick for Seattle. Even Trevor Penning, I've seen him mock there. That might be a little bit too rich for me. I would prefer a guy like Charles Cross for them instead. But I think that if they can get a corner and kind of fix that defense, and we know Pete loves to go from the secondary down, I think that would be a good pick for them. But I'm really curious to know how honest are they with themselves? Do they feel like, hey, we got 2 first-round picks next year. If we stink this year, one of them will be good. We can get a value player there, and we can use the other one to bolster the roster. Then I'm keeping DK Metcalf. But it really comes down to what's the picture there, because do you want to pay him $25 million if you don't feel like you're going to compete in 3 years from now? I would probably say no.
That's true.
My question. Wait, what?
Go on. I could go back.
So my question is, I want your unbiased take of this. As far as, what the Bucs need to do, I see a lot of people saying, offensive lineman from Boston College, I forget his name.
Zion Johnson.
Yes, a lot of people are saying him. I've seen some mock drafts where they got Jermaine. I think it's Jermaine Johnson, the third from Florida State. Some got Wyatt. Some got Jordan Davis in some scenarios. I mean, what is your take with Tampa Bay's draft situation? We already talked about Atlanta and Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, look, if they get Zion Johnson, I think that's going to be another situation where I remember when the Bucs got Tristan Wirfs. In my head, I was like, you got to be kidding me, because I had Tristan Wirfs ranked as my top offensive tackle that year, and I thought New York should have taken the Giants, and they ended up going with Andrew Thomas. Andrew Thomas had a nice year, but Wirfs from year one already an immediate impact player, was dominant at the right tackle spot. I think if they can get Zion Johnson, what's really the main concern for the Bucs right now? They lose their offensive guard play. If they throw him in there, I think he's going to be a guy that immediately is going to pick things up. And what makes him so interesting is he can play multiple positions on the O-line. You can move him basically anywhere if you wanted to. And what from everyone talks about is that one of those first guy in, last guy out. They talked about it throughout the pre-draft process. Everyone loves him. I think he would be an ideal fit for them. I think an out-of-box kind of, maybe if they want to consider a type of move, and, it comes down to how they feel about their current linebackers. If they think Levante is getting a little bit older and they want to maybe prepare for the future, I would not mind seeing them take a guy like Nakobe Dean out of Georgia and you stick him next to Devin White for the next 10 years. That's going to be pretty tough to stop. You're talking about 2 guys that are basically like heat-seeking missiles at the linebacker spot. That would be phenomenal there. So, they have options. The only area, like you mentioned, interior O-line does scare me for them. But outside of that, I think anything else for the Bucs would be their way of just bolstering an already great roster. Maybe they can use another edge if they feel like they can get a little bit younger at that position. But I do think that Joe Tryon's going to kind of take that next step this season. He's someone that I really, really liked out of the pre-draft process last year, and I expect him to get better this year. Mm-hmm. But they have a luxury because I think, obviously, they don't need a wide receiver. I think running back, if they really wanted to grab one, they can do that late in the draft. Corner, I feel pretty decent about where they're at corner. I think that this is a team that yeah, like interior O-line, that would be the main area. But if it's not there and you don't want to reach, then maybe go for a defensive lineman just to add a luxury position, or maybe Nakobe Dean at linebacker, again, another luxury pick. But they're in a really good spot.
Okay.
All right.
So
back when I want to say,
you
well,
know,
actually-
JP, I'm gonna jump you.
go ahead, just go ahead.
All right, so I don't know how much time we have left, so I'm gonna skip to the So we know the AFC loaded up this off season, right? So obviously there's gonna have to be an odd team out, I guess per se. So if it is the Chargers and Brandon Staley, like what's gonna happen to the Chargers if they're gonna miss this playoffs and they're gonna be the odd team out?
I think they're going to get a new head coach. I think that if the Chargers were to miss out and Justin Herbert's healthy, I think they'd have to consider kind of changing it up, especially because we have to look back at how they missed the playoffs this past season. You can make an argument that Staley had probably his worst timed game in terms of going for it on fourth down way inside your own territory. And he called that timeout that made the Raiders, kind of change up their strategy late in overtime. I think that their roster's too good. You have two good receivers. You have a do-it-all back in Austin Eckler. You've made upgrades on the O-line. You just added J.C. Jackson and Khalil Mack to your defense, and Staley's a defensive coach. So now there's no excuse because that defense has guys like Bosa, guys like Khalil Mack, guys like J.C. Jackson, guys like Derwin James. They are just loaded everywhere. There really would be no excuse from a talent perspective. And I think the interesting thing would be if they did make a coaching change, how aggressive would they be? Do they call the Saints and be like, all right, we'll trade for Sean Payton? Do they look around the league and say, hey, maybe an Eric Bieniemy from Kansas City will take someone from our own division rival? I think that's what they'd have to consider because I feel really good about Kansas City making the playoffs still, of course, because, yes, they lose Tyreek Hill, but you still got Mahomes, you still got Andy Reid. There's no reason for me not to trust them. And, I know Denver's entering a weird phase where they have a new coach, but Russell Wilson's kind of earned my respect in the sense that you got Russ, you got a chance, and I love their roster to begin with. I kind of feel pretty good about Denver. So I think it's going to come down to Raiders or Chargers, which one of those could potentially get that third spot if a third team comes out of the AFC West. And man, if the Chargers miss it, I would expect some changes.
I'm with you. I think that's going to be the most exciting division in football. And I can't wait. That whole division, just somebody's going to come out of it. It's just a matter of who and how. I can't wait.
Flash, what was that question you had?
Well, let me say, I just want to let you all know on the updated mock draft by Peter's. How do you say his name? Peter
Schrager. Peter Schrager.
Yeah. All right. So at number 1, Jacksonville takes Trayvon Walker. Number 2, Aiden Hutchinson goes to Detroit Lions. Number 3, Houston Texans select Ickey Iwuanu.
It's the dude from NC State. I don't want to butcher his name, but it's Akeem something.
Number 4, they just take Kayvon
Thibodeau.
Morgan.
His stock is falling.
Yeah, Thibodeau. I don't know. What do you think of Thibodeau's stock falling, Chris?
It sounds like Tom Thibodeau. I'll say that.
It's typical overthinking, Like if you put on the tape, he's good. He's one of those guys that had he had the chance to leave last year, would have been. I mean, if he left last year, would have been a top 10 pick that year anyway. I really hope teams don't overthink him. Like there's no excuse for him not to be anywhere from a top 5 to top 7 pick. I know people are concerned about maturity issues or whatnot, but the sense I get out of him when he ends up speaking, and I actually spoke to him back in, I believe it was the 2nd or 3rd week of March. The only vibe I would get is maybe you think there's a little bit of a cockiness to him, but I kind of want my pass rushers to be that way. They got to get in the quarterback's head. So I think that teams are kind of overthinking it. I don't think he's a guy that you're going to worry about getting in trouble. Will he maybe say some comments post-game that might be bulletin board material? Possibly, but that's not really causing any harm there. I think he's a player that if you're a team like the Giants, you're a team like the Texans, you need pass rush help. Go get him.
All right. I don't know how much time we have left with you, Chris. Because I have like 2 different questions.
I just want to say something real quickly. May I say something real quickly?
Yeah.
As of right now on this prediction, they have a Kenny Pickett going at 6.
Okay, so he's going to Carolina at that point. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Chris, how much time we have left?
They got Seahawks picking Derek Stingley Jr. I hope they would go for that corner. But if I'm the Seahawks, I would go number 1 O-line, number 2.
Actually,
number 3.
Okay.
I have a question for Chris.
Okay, he can run through 840. All right, that's good. Let's go. So, all right, JP, you want to go before I have my next question?
Yeah, I got a question. So Chris, as far as Quan Alexander goes, I'm not sure if he's leaving or if he's staying in New Orleans, but if he stays, how beneficial is that? But if he goes, what's a potential landing spot for him?
Yeah, if he goes, it looks like New York, is a spot with the Jets and the familiarity there, knowing Robert Saleh played under his defense in San Francisco, meeting with them this week. I don't know if that deal's imminent at this time. It just seems like it's more of a routine visit for now. And if the price is good, then maybe I could see him going to the Jets. As for, what it would do for them, I think it would hurt from a depth perspective. I think they're ready to kind of hand the keys over to Pete Werner and let him be that linebacker next to Demario Davis. And I think that's very fair. I thought he played well in limited spots last year. But make no mistake, Quan Alexander's a really good leader. His energy is just infectious. He's the type of guy, he steps on the field and you see everyone feed off that energy. And losing that would be big. And the other thing about Quan that I think is tough to replace is the third down, just sideline to sideline speed that he has. Very few have it. And the fact that he still has it after an Achilles surgery just kind of speaks to how much of a freak athlete he is in such a good way. So, will the Saints be fine in terms of the starting lineup without him? I think they can get by, but they would lose a big spot in terms of depth. And you have to wonder about who steps up in that leadership role. That, what you bring to the locker room is sometimes just as important as what you bring to the field. So it would be a loss. Would it be the biggest one they have this year? I would say no, but it would be one that would hurt.
Oh,
yeah. About that though, is like the whole leadership of the Saints kind of got gutted when they lost Malcolm and they lost Teron, because now it's just really DeMario left. And I mean, on offense, they don't have that vet leadership now. Michael Thomas, I think, is probably the oldest skill position player. I think James Harris is probably the oldest overall, but you have to think that they're gonna have to fill that leadership void somewhere, because it can't just be DeMario. I know Chauncey's doing his thing. He brings some juice that you're talking about with Quan, but I don't think he's at that position in his career yet to be that kind of leader guy. But going to the next thing now. So we already know the top 6 guys in this first round. It's the Jameson Williams, or Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, etc. But who do you think are going to be those day 2 wide receivers? I just saw Sean Payne's comment now with that they got Michael Thomas in the second round. So who do you think can be that Mike, that DK, AJ Brown, Terry McLaurin kind of player come on day 2 and immediately impact on day 1?
I personally don't think he should go on day 2, but it kind of seems like he is at this time. If George Pickens from Georgia is there in the second round, he's the type of player that, had he been able to play this whole season, he would be a no-brainer first-round pick. And that confuses me, right? Because if you know that and you see it on tape, why isn't he kind of a consensus first? Because he is healthy now. And you want a guy who can get down the field and make explosive plays, he can do that. You want a guy who's going to be there, high point the football, he can do that. You want someone who's going to be a physical run blocker. He's going to get in the face of a cornerback every single play. I think he is an explosive guy that, if he could stay healthy, I think he's going to pop. I think a player like Sky Moore from Western Michigan, he has a lot of Golden Tate to his game, and Golden Tate was a good player for a long time. So I think that's a player who, second round, that'd be really good value. And I think one more guy that excites me is Alec Pierce from Cincinnati. He is not as polished as George Pickens or Sky Moore, but he's a 6'3" guy who runs about a 4.4 40. Teams are going to like that. Teams are going to like that a lot, especially ones that value that vertical passing attack. And I think in the right system with the right fit, not asking him to do so much early on, more so be a deep field guy, I think that he can be a really productive player there. But I think with George Pickens and Sky Moore are the two that really stand out to me on day 2.
All right, so I'm going to transition over to the NBA if that's good with y'all too, if you don't have any more NFL questions. Flash. All right,
I don't have any at the moment.
All right, so as the NBA playoffs are going on, who's your final prediction to start off straight up?
I think we're going to get a rematch. I kind of felt that way about a month ago. It kind of seems like a collision course again. I could be wrong, but I think we would get Suns Bucks again. And frankly, I'm kind of rooting for that. I think it would be a pretty good matchup.
I want to see a fully healthy 100% Giannis just go out and just kill him again. Because he did it essentially on one leg. So, I mean, if you give him 2 legs, I mean, that would be even crazy to think about. But, okay, so this one's kind of the off-season talking point that's going to come up, I feel, if Dallas does beat Utah. Because there's been rumblings about the whole him and Rudy Gobert, relationship. If they do lose in this first round, especially with Luka coming back in game 3 or 4, does Donovan Mitchell get traded? And, who do you think would be a good fit?
I mean, I think, he might want to have to consider leaving. I don't know if Utah would be willing to do it. He's kind of been he's been a fan favorite since he's got there, frankly. And I think it's tough to kind of move on from a player like Donovan Mitchell specifically because his production, it always increases in the playoffs. I know people are going to talk about his lack of defense yesterday, and it was on display with the way Jalen Brunson played yesterday, but he is such a talented playmaker, and he always takes a game to that next level on the big stage. I don't know if they'd want to get rid of him. If they did, though, I'd imagine the first spot that people are going to mention, because they just mention it all the time, it's usually the Knicks in terms of, God forbid, we don't link a big player to the Knicks. It just seems to be the thing, but this is a guy who is closer to that New York area. They do have a lot of younger players that they can move. That would be one. Look, you could mention Orlando. I think Orlando, in terms of assets, makes a lot of sense, but I think Donovan Mitchell would have to want to play there. I don't necessarily know if that's what he would be down for, but if you're talking about just straight up assets, Orlando's got guys that they can move to make that happen. So in terms of the logistics, that works. I think it comes down to how desperate is Mitchell to want out, and what does he want out of getting traded? Like, I remember when Paul George got traded from Indiana, it was more so just get me to a good team. It wasn't so much about the market, which is why he ended up in Oklahoma City. So I'm very curious to that point. Like, what does Donovan Mitchell value at this point in his career? Is it ending up on a championship team? Is it going to a big market? Is it trying to get the best of both worlds, which is going to be tough to do? But I would imagine any team that is in the Eastern Conference that has young players to give up, whether it's New York, whether it's Orlando, those would probably be the teams that be linked to him.
I actually got a question. Number one, Russell Wilson. Not Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook this offseason, and what are the Lakers going to do with him? Let's start there. What do you think?
He's getting traded. Like, he's absolutely going to get traded. It comes down to what can they get for him. I've seen, Indiana and Charlotte mentioned as the two teams for him. I think Charlotte makes absolutely zero sense. I don't want to put Russell Westbrook in the same system as LaMelo Ball. If I'm Charlotte, everything's got to be built around LaMelo and what is going to get the best out of him. And I don't know if adding a ball dominant player like Russell Westbrook would help his game. It could potentially stunt it. So that one made no sense for me. Indiana makes sense for me in the sense that, okay, are they willing to eat that 1 year of Westbrook's contract? No, they'll get a first round pick or two attached to it. No, he's gone after next season because there's only the player option for the 2022-2023 season left. Maybe that makes sense. And if you're Indiana, in the process of taking on Westbrook's contract for 1 year and getting a pick back, you might be able to get rid of a contract that you don't want to pay anymore. Maybe Malcolm Brogdon is someone that they don't really want to pay anymore, and the Lakers would probably value Brogdon over Westbrook at this point because he might be a better fit next to LeBron. So I think that Indiana kind of makes the most sense for me right now, but I do feel that Westbrook will absolutely get moved. The writing's on the wall there. Lakers kind of have to make any type of desperation move they can, because this could be, next season could be the last one with LeBron, and you'd imagine they want to go all out there. So I would say teams like Indiana that are willing to take on the pick and take on that bad contract for 1 year, they would make a lot of sense.
Okay. I personally want him back in DC. That's me personally. I thought he should have stayed in DC personally. I think LA was just a dump. Frank Vogel made the whole team a dump. I mean, I could rant about Frank Vogel right now, but
oh my god,
he's had like four of these.
I'm gonna say this real quickly. Frank Vogel has allowed guys like Malik Monk and THT to think they're star players, and everyone's fighting for the ball. I think that's what I want to say.
Okay, let's reel back in.
Should be blamed like that.
All right, JP's has that question. Yeah,
I'm done.
Yeah, my question is this, and it'll pop up on the screen. As far as from what we've assessed so far in the playoffs in this opening round, which one looks like an early sweep?
I'm going to have to go Golden State, Denver. Yesterday was just it. We've reached a point now where, there were some people after game one, they're like, all right, Jordan Poole is good, but he's not that good, is he? And then he comes out yesterday and he looks fantastic. And I think for Golden State, I think Steph Curry had 34 points in like 23 minutes or whatever it might have been. Like,
it was
so good. They look like it. And for them, if you're Denver, what do you do, right? Because their style play is so different from what you're doing right now. And you know what? What can the Nuggets do? They don't have Jamal Murray. Their backs are against the wall. I would imagine Golden State want to get that done quickly. And if Golden State does get that done quickly, if you can sit back and wait, because surprisingly now, Memphis, Minnesota, that's not going to be as quick of a series as people thought it might be.
Exactly.
That's extra time for Steph Curry to rest, which means semifinals of the Western Conference playoffs, you don't have to worry about a minutes restriction. If he gets more rest, you can just let him go at a full limit, and that would make them even scarier. So I'd probably go with Golden State.
And see, I'm gonna add on this. When you start to see Golden State just throw up threes and they just go in easily, and then it's like that's demoralizing. That's just mentally draining because now it's like I'm doing everything I need to do, but these things are still falling like that, and that's dangerous. When they get hot like that, it's over. It's over. There's no way. But go ahead, Ace. I mean, Flash. My bad. Go ahead, Flash.
I also want to say right now, just from the get go, looking at regular season stats and stuff, and the first game, I think Milwaukee Chicago is going to be a sweep. Chicago has nothing. Billy Donovan is not that good in the playoffs. When you have
DeMar DeRozan isn't that good in the playoffs.
DeMar DeRozan and Billy Donovan are not the greatest people in the playoffs. I'm just going to say it right now.
The frozen.
Billy D is a great coach, but in the playoffs, I mean, he kind of has. We have seen him shrink in those moments. We have seen it.
I mean, Drew Holiday and Chris,
and it doesn't get any better with how the regular season has looked against Milwaukee for Chicago. It just doesn't look that good. That's just a terrible matchup.
All right. So this is going to go on to the Boston, Brooklyn. That was like the most viewed playoff game in like a while. It's 9.3 million viewers in that game. We saw the Jason Tatum buzzer beater, but I mean, there's been people are overblowing that Kyrie Boston thing. But what do you make of if the fans keep annoying Kyrie? Is that going to awaken the next level? Because we already see Ramadan Kyrie dropping 34 with no water or no food or anything. But I mean, is that just that mindset of him coming in? Is he just gonna be a more hungrier dog than anything?
I mean, I think he was regardless coming into this series. Like you can blame whoever you want, blame the fans, blame Kyrie. I'm not gonna blame either one. I think that people forget, and Kevin Durant talked about it today, and I think he said it best. When you see a fan base like the Celtics be, I would say, pretty hostile towards Kyrie Irving, as long as it's just them booing and no one's completely taking this out of line. At the end of the day, it does come from a place of love in the sense that they were hurt that he left because they thought when they acquired him from Cleveland, he was going to be the face of the franchise. And unfortunately, just, with injuries and stuff, it didn't work out. And he moves on to Brooklyn. Fan bases get sour. But if they didn't care about Kyrie Irving, they wouldn't boo him. They wouldn't give him any attention. But they do care, and that's why they do boo him. And, I think some people are overblowing it. Kyrie Irving flipped the middle finger. He didn't do anything completely just obscene on TV. We've seen it before. It's no big deal, in my opinion. If fans want to boo, if they're just going to casually, from time to time, flip the bird and all they're going to do is boo, I think it's good for television. The NBA can absolutely use that right now. I thought game 1 was amazing. And if they could have a 7-game series like this, sign me up for it. And as for Kyrie and what he's going to do, I think this is who Kyrie Irving is. And whether you love him or hate him, if this season didn't make you realize just how good of a pure basketball player Kyrie Irving is, I don't know what will, because you're talking about a guy who, when the restrictions are on, whether it was the vaccine stuff or things of that nature, he would play at best every third, every fourth day, and yet that wasn't throwing off his rhythm. He'd go out there and casually drop 30 points on very, great shooting percentages. So he's just an outstanding basketball player. He did, yeah, and he's just outstanding. He's a big-time player in the playoffs as well. I would not be surprised if he averages close to 33, in this series. Like, that's just the type of player he is. So I expect him to play with a big chip on his shoulder, even when they're at home. And he's not going to have to worry about fans booing him because it is the Celtics. And for him, we'll take that a little bit more personal.
But I want to say this real quickly. I mean, booing and that stuff is okay, but like when you get into the point where you're like throwing drinks or popcorn on players, cough, Philadelphia fans to Westbrook last year, I think that's when things get out of line, or if you start making insults about a person's family or something, that's when I think it's out of line. But if you're just casually stuff,
okay, no more rants, Flash. You already had your
rant. It's not a rant. It's
stating
a fact.
He's stating the facts, right. But yeah,
right. It's not a rant. Smart one.
He's right, because I mean, look, me and Chris probably have. I know y'all probably weren't alive for it, but Malice at the Palace.
Oh, please. That
you got things like that can happen when you have an incident where fans overstep their boundaries.
Yeah.
And so it does make sense to where people need to learn to respect the boundary, know that yes, these guys are humans too, and we need to we are fans, we're fanatics, we need to just stay out of it. It's the truth. But like
You know
I
what,
said,
JP?
like
All right.
I'm glad you brought up Malice at Palace because now that I think about it, there's been a lot of times people that think will explode on like a fan or something, but we never actually see him put his hands on a fan or anything. And like the time when the guy dropped the popcorn on him in Philadelphia, you didn't see him chargely go after him or anything, you know. I think
wait, Flash.
we just never thought about it. I never thought about it until just now. I just want to say that.
But I think that leaves us for a good place. I know Chris has some other things he needs to attend to. So, Chris, thank you for joining us tonight. It was a pleasure, and it was just great, awesome time. We talked about a lot of good different things. So, hopefully, we'll get you on for another time to talk Change and Sonic and all those movies coming out because we didn't get to do it this time on the short time. But
Chris, where can we find you on social media?
Yeah, people can follow me on Twitter at Rosvoglou Report, ROSVOGLOU Report. And absolutely, you know, if scheduling works out, I'd love to come back on and chat with you guys about anything. Whatever you guys want, I'm down.
Yes, sir. Yes,
sir.
We need to set something up to where we get Stank and we get Chris on here.
Yeah, we've had Stank Bastard on the other.
That would be funny.
I don't know if he knows. I don't know if he knows who that is.
I think you know who Stank Bastard is on Twitter, Chris.
Is that Tampa Bay?
Yeah, that's the Bucks guy.
Big time Bucks fan.
All right, but Chris, thank you so much. Have a good night. Stay blessed. Stay safe. All that.
You too,
yes, Chris. We appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you guys having me on. Have a good one, guys.
Yes, sir. Take care. Take care.
Take care.
He's awesome.
All right.
He's awesome.
He's really cool. Yeah, he's really cool. All right. So, what do you guys want to do? NFL hot top or continue on the NBA?
I want to rant on the C version.
You already had a rant, bro.
That was not a rant. All right.
I'm gonna take my step back behind the green screen.
No. You know, leave me alone with it.
What you mean?
Right. That's fine. All right, Flash, have your rant.
I quit this show after this episode, ladies and gentlemen. I quit.
No, you don't.
All right,
yes,
JP,
I am. This is BS, man. I'm being abused by my co-producer here.
You go ahead and you sing your little heart out.
All right, sing your little heart, JP's. I'll see you tomorrow.
This little light of mine.
I'm gonna let it shine.
Just let it shine. Go ahead.
Let it shine. Let it shine.
All right, we'll have your rant
right now. We leave you the floor.
All right. So I want to say this about Seattle right now at this moment. Right now, I think they're in a complete disarray. Look, offensive coordinator doesn't look promising right now. I think he's going to be out the door by next season. Defensive coordinator, well, thank God they got rid of defensive coordinator. I just also want to say that I also blame this offensive coordinator for making Russell Wilson look like a mess as well. So I mean, as of right now, it's just a mess. I mean, we'll see what the GM does. I hope they make some good decisions because it's going to take a lot to replace a guy like Russell Wilson. So that's just all I want to say.
It is. Like I said, the greatest era in Seattle Seahawks football is officially over.
For now.
It's over. It's not coming back.
It's not coming back. But I'm not going to say it's – but you never know. You're just going to be a greater part of Seattle
What's
Seahawks
next?
football.
What's the plan?
We don't know. Am I a fortune teller? No. I also want to. Also, I do.
Who do you want them to draft at number 9?
I like the DB pick, but I feel like someone on the defensive line would actually be kind of fired just to mess with the NFC West a little bit.
They did say if Kayvon Thibodeau falls down to 9, he's going to be guaranteed the pick. He's not getting past 9.
That makes sense.
Yeah, if Seahawks get a guy like that, that'd be fun. That'd be funny to watch.
Honestly, to be honest with you, sometimes I feel
Seattle's going to trade out.
I feel
that's just my personal opinion.
I feel like it would be Kayvon Thibodeau, because I feel like sometimes these guys that play at these West Coast schools or schools close to their hometowns, they end up being taken for some reason here or there, like Hargraves when he came to Tampa, and he should probably never even come to Tampa, or even what we're going to see happen with Aiden Hutchinson.
Hey, I'll say this: Jermaine Kearse went to Washington, and he came out all right with Seattle. I think
Doug Baldwin went to Stanford. He worked out.
Yeah, he worked out.
Doug Baldwin went to Stanford.
Doug Baldwin was like Russell Wilson's favorite target.
I was thinking about someone else. My bad. I'm sorry. But yeah, I mean, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Like Justin Herbert.
I'm gonna say right now, I think Doug Baldwin might have been the best receiver they might have taken for Russell Wilson. For in terms of
Ooh.
targets
I'm glad you added that last part because I was going to get you.
for Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I know. I'm glad you added for Russell.
You was gonna say for all time, you would have just killed him right
No,
there.
not all time. Not all time. I love Doug Baldwin. That is one of my favorite receivers throughout the time at Seattle.
I would have flipped this laptop over and I would have gotten up, taken a walk, and came back and been like, "Don't you dare disrespect
He
Jerry
froze.
Rice."
He froze. No. I don't think he's that good now. All right. I mean, look. I'll say this: they actually benched Doug Baldwin. Did not play that much in that first Super Bowl in favor of Percy Harvin. Just remember that.
Of course.
I mean, Golden Tate was also screwing with Russ's wife at the same time, but we won't get into that.
Wait, what? That's my key.
You know what? We don't talk about that. All right.
Yeah, we don't talk about.
Russell Wilson has actually upgraded his girl, so I think Russell Wilson has actually
Russell
won
Wilson
anyway.
upgraded.
He won.
That's my.
All right, let's go into the next one. So Mike Tirico, Chris Collinsworth, and Melissa Stark on the new Sunday Night Football crew. What's your thoughts about that? We know Joe Buck, Troy Aikman over on ESPN.
My cue to get out of here.
Al Michaels and what's the guy's name? Kirk Herbstreit going over to Amazon. So what do you think, Flash? J Peeps left us.
Oh dear.
We're in the hot topics now.
All right. I'm sorry, I got my mouth for a second.
No, I was saying, so we know who NBC just announced their new how should I say it? The new broadcasting crew for Sunday Night Football. So it's gonna be Mike Tirico is just essentially replacing Al Michaels, and Melissa Stark is replacing Michelle Tafoya, who's going on to do. I'm not even going to explain that because that's just weird what she does. But anywho, what do you think about that new pairing of Tirico and Collinsworth?
I want to see how it plays out. That's all I'm going to say. I don't know too much, to be frank.
But all right, Denzel Ward is now the highest paid corner in the NFL. He just passed Jalen Ramsey by about 50,000. I think it was just barely.
You think it's worth that money?
No. The biggest deal of the wide cornerback market is J.C. Jackson, who's led the league in interception since 2018, who's now getting $16.5 million, while Denzel Ward just got a 20 and a.
I don't want to be disrespectful, but where does he play? And
Cleveland. Cleveland's got to pay their guys a lot to keep them. That's why they just gave Deshaun Watson a fully guaranteed contract.
I'm sorry, but Cleveland's looking like a dumpster again. They're going back.
They got Deshaun, so their fans are optimistic that they won't be.
They're optimistic, but I mean, I would not overpay a guy like Denzel Ward. I mean, especially that Cleveland DBs aren't even that great.
They were solid actually towards the end of the year.
They're solid, but I mean, like I would not be giving them highest paid ever money or highest paid in the league. I would not be touching that. No.
Denzel Ward's not top 10.
No.
He might prove it, but he isn't top 10.
Look, that's I can't say nothing else.
Speaking of former top 10 DBs, Malcolm Butler is headed back to the Patriots. We already talked about that part, but he said yesterday in an interview, he said it's good to not burn your bridges because you never know what's going to happen in the future years. As we see now of him coming back to the Patriots after he didn't play last season with COVID and all that, but after not playing in the Super Bowl to now being played in the.
I'm reading the script right now, and I'm seeing about the Panthers stop construction on the new facility.
Yeah, they're staying.
And put at the bottom the first thing. You want to say it for me? Say it. You know
which thing on the bottom?
Right after the bottom. Is it still trash and have no quarterback? That is signs of a poverty franchise, ladies and gentlemen. You should not be. Look, I'm sorry if you live in that city facility. And you have to stick to being a loyal fan, because guess what? Those NFL owners are not loyal to you when you're with the team. Like that's the Carolina Panthers. I mean, good lord.
David, is it David Tepper who owns them? Yeah, David Tepper owns them.
I don't even know who's that.
That's the guy who bought it after Jerry Richardson. But yeah, he's the most wealthiest owner in the NFL right now, but he ain't that good. He's been wanting a franchise guy, but the way how he's been running Carolina since he bought it, it ain't been it.
I'm gonna be honest with you right now. Now I'm reading about sponsorship patches on MLB uniforms. I don't like it. You know what? I saw with the NBA. I thought it was kind of cool when it first came out, but some of them just look hideous. It's like, you know what? I don't like it anymore.
Yeah, the NHL also is doing it. Well, it's not to the extent of how you see in the European hockey leagues with
No,
the patches
I'll say
covering up the
this.
jersey, but
I'll say this
on
with the
patches.
NHL. If I don't mind like how they did it with the helmets, I think that came out pretty nice because it does not affect
The actual
aesthetic
uniform.
of the actual uniform, and also like hockey helmets have never like actually stood out like football helmets. So
Yeah.
so you know what, it doesn't hurt as much. Or
That's a good idea. Put it on the baseball helmets.
put on a
sticker,
baseball
the
helmet.
sponsor. Then the
Yeah, the
jersey.
sponsorship. I mean,
Or even
do
on the
that.
pants. Like put it on the pants. It's not taking up part of the jersey where it's
No. Don't put it on the
noticeable.
pants. Put it on the helmets. Everyone always sees the helmets. You put it on the helmets.
Yeah, from the camera views and everything, definitely.
Exactly. So I mean, I'm not against that, but on the uniform, like how it is with NBA, I'm kind of getting sick of it, to be honest.
That's a good point. But yeah, there's actually some interesting stuff in the NFL. Not NFL, NHL. So there's 3 guys already over 50 goals. Austin Matthews, Leon Draisaitl, and Chris Kreider. God, I forgot his name. It's the dude on the Rangers. I think it's Chris Kreider. But yeah, so there was a second highest scoring day in NHL history on Saturday where they had 101 goals scored. So the record for the NHL is 103 in 1993. It's actually kind of funny when you think about it, saying it out loud. But anyway, there's got this. It's just weird seeing all these goals being scored in the last month, 2 months and a half, where you could be up 5-0 and still lose in overtime. Carolina Panthers just did that to the New Jersey Devils a couple weeks ago. Like teams are blowing leads left, right, center, off the wall. In hockey, it's a hockey reference. But I mean, it's just crazy. What do you think about all these goals being scored?
Hey, you know what? In some ways,
for
it's
the
good for
game.
the league. It is good for the league that goals are being scored, but it also kind of does suck when when defenses are not getting enough credit. Also, that's the thing. That's one thing that sucks about being a defensive guy. You don't get attention unless you play in the NFL. That's just how it is. That is one thing I must give to the sport of American football is credit. Defensives get a lot of credit for what they are. They actually get a lot of highlight tapes for like causing interceptions or sacks or anything. Whereas in hockey, it's just viewed as like, oh, they're just hard playing and stuff. Or even in the NBA, if a player gets a steal, it gets forgotten unless they dunk it or something. So you got to give the sport of American football.
Credit for their defensive recognition.
Yes, definitely. Especially being like a defensive mind myself, who always like playing defense. It feeds you, you know. I actually want to go on the what Chris said about Russell Westbrook on the Indiana. You know what? I'm not a fan about that, to be honest. I'm really not. I'd rather see Russ like just turn down that $50 million for next year. Indiana is just not in a not sure place. Sure, Russell Westbrook could get them to the playoffs. I mean, besides that,
yeah, they won't get blown out in the play-in tournament again.
Hey, man, you know what? Play-in tournament. I mean, that's not even on Russ at that point. That's Frank Vogel. That's Frank Vogel.
No, I'm not talking about Russ. I'm talking about the Pacers. Sometimes, jeez. The Pacers have gotten blown out twice in the 2 play-in appearances.
Well, with one of them against being Russell Westbrook with the Wizards.
Look, whatever. There was something we need to have a chat next week. We're running out of time on this episode, so next week we're gonna have a chat about LaMelo Ball and his play-in performances. Because when it counted for the Hornets and the world needed LaMelo Ball the most, he vanished. And while you see Anthony Edwards, on the other hand, rise up, literally came back from down 21 against the Clippers, carried them to a win that week, and then go on and be in the number 2 seed in the NBA, the Western Conference in Memphis in game 1 of their series.
Let's argue that right now. We got a few minutes.
Well, what are we gonna argue about right now?
Well,
I want to see Anthony.
I disagree. I mean, look, Anthony Edwards may be more athletically gifted than LaMelo Ball, but Anthony Edwards is not in the same situation as LaMelo Ball. Anthony Edwards is not even the first option on his team versus LaMelo Ball. Ball is
Karl Anthony Towns didn't even play the second half essentially against the Clippers, and LaMelo Ball still went for 30.
Deebo played second to him. what I'm saying is like throughout this season, all this time, LaMelo Ball has been taking more load. His body's been taking more stress versus Anthony Edwards. And also, LaMelo Ball is young. Both of them are young. I'm not ready to bash those guys for playoff performances yet. That's my take on that. You want to know who we should get for next week, Ace, or sometime soon?
What?
Someone I could really clear my mind about Russell Westbrook. We need to get Becca.
Oh.
We need to
After
start
the
making thoughts
season.
about that. No,
Maybe not. We'll work on it.
After the draft, we should start talking. We should start.
Yeah, we'll go into NBA as the tournament goes more, and we already talked about them the most today than we have in a while. But ladies, gents, people everywhere out there, you know what's up. That's gonna do it for another episode of the Last Gift podcast. We had fun, man. This was a good episode. Shout out Chris Rosvoglou at Rosvoglou Report on Twitter. You can find him there. He joined us for the first 40 minutes. Make sure you go hit him a follow and follow his Locked On Saints podcast. Not Locked On Saints. That's Ross Jackson. Straight Up Saints podcast. That's where he does his stuff. And The Spun is where he writes his articles and does great interviews. He's interviewed guys like Drew Brees, Deion Sanders. Make sure you check him out over there. But anyway, this was a fun episode. Flash, what was your thoughts on this? And what we're gonna do next? How we feel about this?
Yeah, I think it was a great episode. I mean, Chris gave us a lot of insight and information and stuff. I mean, I still kind of disagree on the Russell Westbrook thing, but I cannot doubt Chris as much. But maybe I don't know.
He was right about Russell Wilson getting traded.
Yes, I'll say that. But at the same time, I wonder how his NBA sources are like. I'm just curious.
No, I know why he said he's gonna get traded. I think he just said Indiana and Charlotte because
because it's in the
right
news.
now.
It's in the rumor mill. No.
Yeah.
I mean, I would rather see Russ not take that $50 million at all. I mean, the man has made a lot of money as an athlete alone. I think he's better off just trying to find a team that's going to help him actually completely.
Hey, this is the closing. This isn't a Russell Westbrook show.
So that's just all I want to say.
All right.
Anyways, guys, be a friend.
Thank you
for coming out. Be a friend. Tell a friend. Like, share, subscribe.
Run a gun tomorrow at 8. I'm gonna start working on a next guest first. I'm gonna see if I can pull him for next Tuesday, but I'm gonna work on something. I'm gonna see if I can get him. I have an idea of who I'm gonna get. But anyway, guys, thanks so much for this episode. Make sure if you're on Twitter, go hit up the YouTube link, drop a like over there, or retweet it if you're also on Twitter. But yeah, thanks so much. Have a blessed day. Stay blessed.
Take it easy.
J Peeps.